All right, everybody, welcome back into the Leaning into Leadership podcast. This is episode 216, the second in our six-part series where we sit down and have conversations with NASSP National Principal of the Year finalists. On Tuesday, you had the opportunity to hear from one of the middle school finalists. Now, today, we're sitting down with the first of three finalists for the National High School Principal of the Year award. And my guest on the show here on episode 216, Principal Tony Cattani. Tony is the principal of Lenape High School in Medford, New Jersey. He has led Lenape for 18 years, and his leadership has transformed the impact on school culture, teacher growth, and student success. Now, in this conversation, we're going to talk about his journey from management to mission-driven as a leader, how his peer observation work has changed everything at Lenape, and why empowering teachers to learn from each other is the key to real school improvement. Man, this is another one of those absolutely powerful and amazing conversations. I really enjoyed sitting down and visiting with Tony Cattani. So let's not waste any time, folks. Let's dive in with high school NASSP finalist Tony Cattani. All right, my friends, welcome back into the Leaning into Leadership podcast. Another very special episode for you today, continuing in our series where we are highlighting the finalists. We're celebrating the finalists, the 2025-2026 National Principal of the Year finalists for the National Association of Secondary School Principals, NASSP. And today on the show, we have one of the high school finalists, Tony Cattani from Lenape High School in Medford, New Jersey. Tony has been the principal of Lenape for 18 years. He is recognized for his role in developing a positive and inclusive school culture where students and staff feel valued and supportive. Tony's a visionary leader. He has championed professional collaboration, encouraging teachers to grow by learning from their most powerful resource, which is each other, through more than 3,000 peer observations and collegiality cafes. Can't wait to hear about that. Tony models peer observation by sharing best practices with colleagues at the New Jersey Principals and Supervisors Association conferences. Known as a tireless advocate for students, he consistently places their well-being and academic and personal growth at the forefront of every one of his initiatives. His dedication and impact have set a lasting standard for leadership within the Lenape community and beyond. He is also an executive council member of the New Jersey State Interscholastic Athletic Association. Man, what an awesome introduction that is right there.
Yeah,
what
man.
An awesome biography that is, Tony.
I hope I can live up to it. I hope I can live up to it.
Man, yeah, you're living that is what you're doing, man. So welcome into the show, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Darren, it is an absolute honor to be on your show. I listen to your show. I've seen you on other podcasts. I'm super pumped to be on here. I listening to you, driving in my car on long drives. My family drives everywhere. I got 4 girls, so we can't afford to be on planes. So we drive everywhere. So we drove to Florida last year. We drove to South Carolina. My daughter's going to Auburn. I have one that's going to University of South Carolina. So we just drove recently, listened to all your shows, and then to be invited on your show is just surreal, to be truthful with you. It's just really, really cool. So I am
that's awesome. Yeah.
Really, really happy to be here.
Yeah, girl dads unite right there. I'll tell you
what,
man. There we go. So let's do this. I've kind of already framed a little bit of your background there, but what I would love to have you do is maybe share just a little bit with the listeners, with those folks who are maybe watching this one on YouTube. And before I even do that, let me again say congratulations on this recognition.
Thank you.
And it's amazing to be, in that group that we were talking before we hit record, that Principal of the Year class that you are a part of, and you were sharing that you've already started building relationships with them, having them on your podcast. Yeah. It's an incredible honor, but it's also, you're now part of this class, this group, this sorority and fraternity mixed together of Principals of the Year, and it's a pretty amazing thing. So congratulations on that, and
thank you.
Maybe share Share a little bit with our listeners and viewers about kind of maybe your leadership journey. I know you've been at that school for 18 years as the building principal,
Yeah.
so let's kind of hit the rewind machine here and learn about Tony.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk all day because my journey's been long and fantastic, to be honest with you. So I've had some great people around me. I think, going back to my days in high school, to be honest with you, I think I was an average student at best. I was more interested in playing sports and things of that nature, but I was always drawn to be a leader, whether it was the quarterback, the pitcher, the president of the class since I was in fifth or sixth grade. People were always, with me, and I was influencing them and supporting them. And I just had a great group of people around me. And when I went to college, I just got involved. I wanted to be in business. I wanted to work in New York City, not too far from me, right? And then I had an opportunity to work with the Rowan football team. I went to Rowan University and played football there, and I worked with the Special Olympics on a couple times. And I said, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to work with kids. I want to help people. And I completely changed the trajectory of my life. And did some different things. I coached college football for a year at Rowan University, and I was forced to get my master's. And because I had to coach college football, so you have to get your master's. And I was ready to go teach. I was teaching health and physical education at Bound Brook up in North Jersey, and my life changed with a phone call from my head coach saying, "Would you be a graduate assistant?" I was getting ready to go meet with the superintendent to sign my contract. My mom's car is running. It was a summer day. I was late hire. And Casey Keeler from Rowan University called me and said, "I want you to be a grad assistant." I said, "Coach, I'm going to go make some money." He goes, "Well, listen, I'll pay you $3,000 for the year to be a graduate assistant." And he said, "But you got to get your master's. And what would you get your master's?" And I said, "Let me think about it." I drove up to Bound Brook and I told the superintendent no, because I thought about it. I said, "This is a passion I want to do." And I'm a passionate guy, and I follow my heart. And I knew this was something I was interested in. And so I went back and I coached football for a year, and I got my master's in educational and leadership because my coach told me to. He said, "You're fit for this. When you're ready to change out of football, you're going to do this." And I went back to the school I student taught at, and I started teaching there, and they saw something in me. And then I started doing my internship, and the next thing I got the tap, and I was an assistant principal at a sister school. We're a school of 4 high schools. We have 7,000 kids at 4 high schools, and I'm one of them with 1,900 kids of mine. And they put me at another school and said, "You're going to be an assistant principal." I was there for 3 years, and then all of a sudden I got a phone call to meet. And I went to lunch with our superintendent. She said, "You're going to be the principal in Lenape High School." I was 31 years old. And I was walking to a building with people that were teaching 40 years, and I was 31. And I had to learn my way. And that journey really helped me because I felt like the first, I think, 8 to 10 years, Darren, I wasn't the guy I am now, man. I was trying to manage. I was trying to get through. I was trying to figure it out. It was a frustrating time. It was a time where I didn't see a lot of, I saw the kids. It was really positive, but I wasn't doing the things I'm doing now. I didn't start out this way. I felt like I had a lot of support around me, but I don't think I utilized it well enough to really excel, and that frustrated me. And I'm a guy that, like I said, I coached football before, and in the football network, all you ever do is sit down with people that talk football, right? They want to talk football when you're at lab duty. They want to talk football when you're at the lunch. They want to talk football about X's and O's. They want to talk about it all the time. It's all coaches do. Now, I was in that life, but nobody sat and talked to me about, being a leader, being a principal, analyzing some different conversations and decisions to make. And we weren't really doing that a lot. And until I went to, I went to the 2016 NASSP conference, and I heard Todd Whitaker speak, and it was like this light bulb went on for me. Like it was the weirdest thing. He was the keynote speaker. I was kind of like half listening, and then all of a sudden I'm listening, and this guy he hooked me in. And then from there, my whole career changed. Of reading his book to talking to Jimmy Casas and Dr. Joe Sanfilippo, and then hearing other people talk and really networking with some people in New Jersey and then beyond, and just seeing what the great things people were doing, my leadership style changed, and I think made me better and made Lenape better, and my staff. It was it was a long journey, but a lot of factors of people that were in my life that were fantastic. My current superintendent, my former superintendent were fantastic. The principals in my district, Matt Campbell, Donna Charlesworth, and Brad Bauer, and Jeff Spector, and all these people, just great people. But yeah, that's pretty much my journey. I mean, I stay in the Lenape district. My kids go to my district. We live in the town we serve. Yeah, that's my piece, Darren.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. And I want to circle back to something that you talked about in there. Um, here you are, a finalist for the National High School Principal of the Year. And I heard you say that you struggled early as a building
100%.
administrator. And I think a lot of times I did too. Holy moly. Did I struggle that first, probably 2 years. And you said it well. You were just managing. You weren't
Yeah.
leading. And certainly, I mean, you named some big hitters right there, right? I mean, you hear Todd Whitaker speak. For me, and I was at that very same conference and heard Todd. I'd heard Todd once before, when Shifting the Monkey had come out. He keynoted a conference I was at, and I got to hear him talk about everything to do with shifting the monkey, and that was a game changer for me. Of course, you mentioned Jimmy and you mentioned Joe, also too.
Awesome
Absolutely
guy.
phenomenal individuals. So let's maybe dig in a little bit on that, because here we have a lot of leaders that are listening into this show, and they're thinking, boy, this Tony Cattani guy, he's just got it all figured out. He's a national finalist. But wait a minute, he just said he was struggling too.
For years. For several years.
Talk about some of what you did. You mentioned leveraging the people around you, that you weren't letting them do things. I mean, you're hitting all the important topics of how you go from crisis to clarity. So talk about some of that journey.
So I still believe this, and I'm going to talk to this at some later point. I get an opportunity at NASSP, is I'm still completely in imposter syndrome. Right. And I think many of us are. And I don't think anybody feels really comfortable with the recognition of being principal of the year, state principal of the year, because I don't have it all figured out. And that's something I realized in that time period, that I didn't have it all figured out. And I think there were times where I struggled to ask for help, and I micromanaged, and I felt like I was one of the better ones in the room. I was the most vested person in the room because my name was on the front panel of the door, whatever it was. And that, I had a tough time delegating. And then I read about what great principals do differently. And it gave you perspective of, like, principals do the things that only the principal can do. There are other tasks that other people can do. And then it was about, man, like, do I want to be great, right? Or do I just want to get through, right? And get by and manage day by day. And I heard one of your recent podcasts, and it really resonated with me, was about task versus outcome, and being task oriented, and really making a decision this big, but not knowing the total outcome of what could be happening, right? And I think I did that for a long time, and I think I still revert back to that many times, in times of sometimes of crisis and things of that nature. And I had to kind of like slap my face. But those are the parts for me. Is I think one of my strengths is that I'm completely vulnerable. I've been humbled way too many times to not be. And I think I'm a constant learner. I listen to the Simon Sinek's talk all the time. I love TikTok, right? So I'm on there picking up. I love reading books about leadership. I love listening to podcasts. I love talking with other educational leaders. I love it. It's my favorite thing to do. Like, I play golf. That's really my other hobby. But other than that, my wife's like, all you ever do, you don't listen to a podcast about, I love college football. Okay, college football is my thing. But I like to learn from people, and because our jobs are so important, and the impact is so important, that I can't squander this time. Like, I can't. I felt like, Darren, here's my thing is, I felt like I was a pretty good teacher, right? In the moment, I thought I was good. Right? I connected with kids. I was young. I was 23 years old. It was easier to connect. I taught senior health. It was such a great conversation. But in the same thing, when I started becoming an administration at a very young age, I realized I would be such a better teacher now that I saw other teachers teach. And I started walking in going, that's such a better way than what I would have done. Like, I wish I had that knowledge. And I resented myself of a teacher because I could have gave those kids a better experience. And I realized around that time frame of 2014 to 16, that's why I went to my first conference in 2016, NASSP, was I needed more, because I didn't want to look back on my career and say, I could have been better, I could have been great, I could have provided a great opportunity experience for our kids at Lenape. And I didn't want that same feeling that I had when I walked out of the classroom. I didn't. And like I said, I felt like I was good when I was in it, but then I realized I wasn't that good when I started looking around, seeing what other
Yeah.
people were doing.
I think that's a common experience for administrators. You know, I just spent the week in Virginia with a school division working with all of their leaders on everything to do with gaining clarity, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that we talked about was, you know, we go from our classroom where, let's be honest, we assume that's what it
Yeah.
looks like in other rooms.
Hmm.
And then when we step into that assistant principal or principal role, or even instructional coach role,
Yeah.
and we start seeing other rooms, we're like, oh, wait a minute, that doesn't look like what it did in my room.
No.
And
No.
sometimes it's like, well, most of the times it's like, oh my gosh, I would be exactly what you just said. I would be so much of a better teacher if I had seen this, and if I had seen
Yeah.
this, and I had seen
Yeah.
this. But you also get the experience of, oh my gosh, wow, that's
Yep.
happening, right?
Yep.
So that leads me to ask about some of the work that certainly, and I talked about it in your intro, and I'm sure it has a lot to do with some of the, you know, recognition that you're receiving and the recognition that Lenape is receiving. 3,000 peer observations, collegiality cafe. I have a feeling, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but when you are working hard to find ways to learn from others, observe others to improve your own practice, you're modeling for your staff what you want. So
100%.
how did collegiality cafes, how did peer observations come about? And you don't get to 3,000 by not having a good plan to work up towards that. You didn't just flip the
Yeah.
switch and say, okay, here's what we're doing. So
Yeah.
talk about that process.
Yeah, I mean, the peer observations has been significantly a game changer in our building. And then it led to the Collegiata Cafes and our sobbing circles, and it led to passion projects. But the Collegiata Cafe was the baby of it. And it was one of those things I had. My happy place is on my back porch, overlooking the pool. And I started thinking about, I was tired of meeting with teachers doing, observations once a year, twice a year, right? I tell them, you teach 37,453 minutes a year on our schedule, and I come in for 57 minutes a year, and I tell you if you're good, bad, or indifferent. And when I was meeting with them, I was telling them, I was just in another class, and Darren is killing it. The way he assessed students was fantastic. You gotta talk to Darren. And I didn't have a mechanism for him then to go to talk to Darren. And our teachers were learning from other teachers just by happenstance, whether they had lab duty outside the teacher that kept his door open, he was really loud, and they learned some stuff from them, or a kid saying, we just did this really cool activity in my class, and this is what Mr. Guitar did, this is what Ms. Colangelo did, and they heard about that. Or got people coached together, and they might talk about their lessons. But I told you earlier, coaches talk about X's and O's a lot of times more than they talk
Right,
about
yeah.
teaching, right? It's just we didn't have that collegiality conversation during that time. We weren't sharing best practices. And we were just, this profession is super isolating. We say it's 8 inches difference, right? 8 inches of cinder block separate us, and we have no idea what's on
Yep.
the other 8 inches of that wall. And I realized that if I were saying to a teacher, hey, Darren, you should try this because I did this when I was teaching, would be a it would be arrogant. It would be,
Right.
minimizing to their profession because I haven't taught in 5, 6, 7, 10 years, right? And I had to give examples of others, and I had to make it vivid for them to see this. So we created a peer observation model, and that's my baby. And we had a pilot program. I got a really diverse group of teachers, first year teachers to my 40-year teacher, right, to my union rep. And my major part of that year when we started this 7 years ago was I had my big part of my staff were 40 years old. So I brought them in, right? I wanted every department recognized, but I wanted that because I knew they were the influencers of the crux of my entire building. And we did it for the end of the school year. We did it for the very first month of September in that school year. And then I had them present at a faculty meeting. We had an extended faculty meeting, and they presented what they did and what they learned from each other and how rewarding it was. And what they do is, Darren, it's not where I'm going in to watch you and like kind of pick apart what you're doing. You identify your greatest skill set, and we break them down from, do you create growth mindset in your classroom? Do you check for understanding? Are you a dynamic lesson designer, right? And do you have great classroom management skills? And what you do is you identify that, Darren. So you say, I'm really good at classroom management. I feel like that's my strength. If that's your best, then the other 3 things you can work on, right? And so what happens is if I'm really good at checking for understanding, then I want to go into your classroom because you're really good at classroom management. So I'm going to learn from you because you've identified that, not as supervisor, no one else. And that's what we did. We created a website. We have all the people, everybody identifies their strength. You go onto the website, you say, I want to get better at classroom management today. You say, okay, Will Bausch is teaching today during class 2. That's my prep. And then you contact Will Bausch and say, I want to come in. And he says, yeah, come on in tomorrow. And then you go in and you watch him for 25 minutes, not the whole 57-minute period. And then you get to learn from them. And it's been a game changer. I knew we had something when some of our most challenging staff did it the next day after the faculty meeting. And we've done now, I mean, this year we're over it's over 400 this year, just for this year. And we have, 80% of our staff doing at least one, right? And it just happens without us doing anything anymore. And we've extended it now. Now we recognize teachers. They send a positive message to the person on the website. They fill out a Google form and it sends it to you and also the supervisor. So then the supervisor says, hey, Darren, I heard you did a really good job with, having Megan Laffey in your class the other day. I saw the message. And then we share it out on my weekly email to everybody about all the positive messages people are sharing. It changed the dynamic of our entire building to where then people started doing collegiality cafes during lunch where they were sharing their best practices. So I'd have someone share what's 2 great tips of classroom management. And they would do a 15-minute presentation and then 15 minutes of everybody sharing. And we would have 15, 20, 25 staff. Darren, the best part about this is, I could talk about this all day, is that we've never covered a class for it. This is all done during their prep. But not one. Of the 3,500, whatever, I've never covered a class. The only time I covered a class is when I had a teacher that was a singleton and really wanted to go see another teacher in our district. You go to see like a Spanish class or like a Latin class. You have one Latin teacher. They want to just go see what they do in their Latin class at Shawnee, Cherokee, or Seneca. That's the only time. But there's probably 3,500 now. I could count on one hand that I had to cover somebody's duty or a class. Yeah, they do it on their own.
Yeah, one of the things, number one, I think that's awesome. Number two, something that's standing out to me, and you said it without saying it. This isn't a requirement. You didn't say everybody must do X number. Rather, here's this menu, here's this opportunity for you to grow. Go for it.
So let me tell you that push was, that motivation was, would you be your child's teacher? Right? And I said, I want you to think about, if you brought your kid into Lenape High School, would you be your child's math teacher? Would you be your child's history teacher? I said, I want you to look right to left and I want you to be honest with yourself. And a lot of them said it. And I asked them during my post observations, right? Like, would you be your child's teacher? And they're like, no, I would want Tom Tamburello to be my kid's teacher in math. No, I would want Kevin Meter to be my teacher in history. I would want so-and-so to be my teacher in science, Mrs. Flake, because they're really good with kids. They care and try every day. And I'm like, that's an issue, right? Like, we need to get better. And I was tired of, I wanted every student to have our greatest teacher. And, as a principal and my kids come to the school district, I get to have a little bit of a say where what classes my kids are in. But not every person has that in public school, right? You don't have that choice. So I felt like that was a real problem where there was achievement gaps, and sometimes because of our staff that weren't great. So like the Todd Whitaker says, I'm going to talk to his name all the time, is like, my job is to hire great teachers and make our good teachers great. And when I read that page, that's where this all came from for me. And I want to put a great teacher that cares and tries every day in front of these kids. And I really, that's everything to me.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I think that's something that sometimes school leaders, when they get stuck, like you talked about being in management, in, trying to be everything to everybody, that they forget the importance of that instructional leadership and what it really means for instructional leadership. And for some people, when we talk about instructional leadership, they just assume, oh, that means doing walkthroughs. Well, I heard Principal Kafele say this just the other day. If the walkthrough is just about you showing up, then that's not instructional leadership. Mm-hmm. That's compliance.
Yep.
What I am hearing from you, and loving, by the way, from an instructional leadership standpoint, you're providing the opportunity and empowering them to grow collectively.
No
So the
doubt.
collective efficacy piece from what you are doing, I think is, and there's probably a dozen easily benefits here.
Yeah.
Um, Earlier, before we just talked about this, I was thinking about how you are creating such an incredible culture focused on teaching and learning.
Yeah.
So those two pieces together, I'm going to say these two pieces, and then I want you to run with it. Collective efficacy and a culture of teaching and learning is what I am hearing Lenape High School is all about.
Yeah, man. So we talk about it all the time. We say we have to utilize our best resources. That's each other. And we have built something to where the level of confidence now in our teachers are able to take some different risks because they've identified themselves as a strength. And then it's been validated by other teachers that come into the room saying that this teacher's fantastic, Tony. Like you got to send more kids and more teachers into their room. And they have imagine this. You have a teacher, and this is one of the examples I give to my teachers is this. It's like you tell everybody you're really good in classroom management, right? You put that out there. It's out for everybody in the entire our school to see that you have identified yourself as good in classroom management. You think you might want to live up to that, right? Like if you told everybody like you had really good buffalo chicken dip and you've been bragging about buffalo chicken dip, and then all of a sudden we have a party and everybody says, you better bring the darn buffalo
That's right,
chicken
the
dip,
pressure's on.
right? So what would you do that night before? You would make sure that chicken was cooked perfectly. You would make sure that hot sauce was the exact one, that you went to the store yourself and got it, that you were going to bake it and cook it to be your best because you know you've been telling everybody how good your buffalo chicken dip is, right? And then you want people to eat it, and what would you do when you put it out? You want to stand back and watch and see what people say about it, right? People want to put the chip in there. They want to eat the buffalo chicken dip, and then you want them to say, that's the best buffalo chicken dip I've ever had. It's the same thing with teaching. You told everybody you're great at classroom management. Now you got the chance of people coming in your room and checking you out, right? Like now all of a sudden, you better be good. So if I'm getting them good just for that 25-minute observation, I don't think so. I think they are now prepping every day for that chance of one of their peers to come in that room. Not me. Not me. They're not worried about me coming in. Like we do over 1,200 walkthroughs a year in my building, right? We're in classrooms all the time. Our doors are open. So they're open for administrators, they're open for other teachers, but I'm getting the best of their skill set. And they get to personalize their PD, Darren. They get to say, yeah, I want to get better at checking for understanding. I want to get better at how I design lessons. I want to be more like Devin Dimming. I want to be more like Beth Toth, right? I want to be more like such and so, right? So like, I want to get better. I want to go watch them teach. It's developed teachers talking about teaching and instructing and doing really cool stuff. And then they come up with different ideas that are better ideas than I could ever come up with, right? They're a lot brighter than I am. They're in the classroom, right? You give your best teachers a problem, they solve it quicker than I could solve any issue. So it's completely changed our building and our culture and climate amongst our teachers and our kids, because then we started doing it with kids too.
So I want to extend that.
Yeah.
Because something else dawned on me as you were talking.
Yeah.
And I think this ties into both the culture and the collective efficacy pieces. But I would imagine that the public perception of Lenape High School is extremely strong. And I'll back that up by saying this, and then you can take and run with it. A good friend of mine, now retired high school principal Todd Bloomer from San Antonio, Texas. He has said on this very podcast that one of his strategies going into Thanksgiving break, Christmas break, those types of things, is to remind his staff to have that one story about that one student, that one lesson, that when their grouchy uncle or their goofy neighbor or whatever starts saying something bad about the school, that they can then say, no, here's what you need to know. I say that because with so many teachers visiting each other, I think it's probably even more than just, well, no, that's not true about Lenape High School. But I would imagine a lot of the, oh, no, that's not true of that teacher. I've been in their classroom. Can you talk a little bit about any of that you've experienced?
Yeah, so I think we have a great reputation, and I'm not just saying that. I think that, and I've been here for 18 years, right? And I know the community. I'll put it this way. In the community, we have teachers. So I was asked a question during one of my interviews for NASSP about teacher retention and how much of it is a problem and hiring and the shortage. And I had to say, like, I got to be honest with you, I don't deal with that. I have teachers that stay. I have teachers that they never leave. I have a couple teachers that are 40 years, one's retiring this year after 42, 43 years, right? And I have the line, like I had a history job open just recently, I had 65 applicants. I had a business opening, I had 27 applicants for business, right? And they were like, we'll quit our jobs to come teach and work at Lenape High School because my teachers are telling the story to other teachers of the collegiality to it, the level of support they have for one another, right? We have a fantastic place. I told you earlier, like I've been in this district 26 years as a teacher, as an assistant principal, as a principal, and I don't see myself ever leaving this district. We have something really special here. But every time I get a chance to talk about our staff, whether it's at the Student of the Month presentations, we have the families come in for breakfast, whether it's at our People's Choice, whether it's at academic awards, whether it's a Crystal Apple or senior pinning or, all these things, right? All these things happening. I preach about my teachers and my kids because like everybody says, you take care of the adults, they take care of the kids. That is an absolute feeling amongst the South Jersey, New Jersey area of what Lenape Regional High School District is, and particularly at Lenape High School. A level of support, a level of growth. And another cool part is I'm a risk taker. I will put myself out there and I will fall flat on my face and try to do something crazy with instruction or a really cool professional development because I want to model that for my teachers that it's okay. Just give it a shot. If it flops, it flops. It's okay. We tell them, invite me in for those lessons. And we call them popcorn lessons, and we have a Google form, and right, because I'm going to eat my popcorn. But if you want me to give you some feedback on it, or bring a couple teachers in, let's do it, right? And we have people that do that. We do that as well. So I think the community knows my teachers care about their kids, and that they're doing everything in their power to personalize their professional development to get better. And we model it. We model it. Everybody's modeling for each other, which that wasn't the way 7 years ago. It wasn't that exact way. We were very isolated like a lot of other professions.
I think that's outstanding. I really do. And no surprise here. Our time has absolutely flown by.
Sorry.
This has been such, oh no, do not apologize. This has been amazing. Absolutely amazing. Just tons of leadership gold nuggets along the way. So we're at that point in the show then, Tony, where I'm going to ask you the same question I ask everybody. And man, you have shared so many great leadership pieces here, but what might be a way that you are really leaning into leadership right now?
Yeah, I think it's two-part. I knew this question was coming. I listened to your podcast, right? And you really make me think. And I think it's two-part right now. One part seasonal and another part that you made me think about actually in your pep talk was one I'll start with was just the task and outcome and being consistent with that and being diligent to keep that in the forefront of my mind. Because there's times where, I want to get things accomplished. Everybody has a checklist, right? And that checklist gets blown up, but also to really consider the outcome and slow down sometimes. You can tell I'm a fast talker. I'm high energy, right? Even though I've been doing this job a long time, I love what I do. But I feel like I'm leaning into that. I feel like, sometimes we need to slow down and do the right process and get more people involved and let our people continue to grow in some different areas. That's one. And I think the other one is really refilling my bucket right now, right? This is being recorded in June. We graduate June 17th. We've had a really challenging year this year with a couple different student incidences in our building, and we're growing for those things. But I think it's that time of the year where I'm looking to refill my bucket. And this stuff, meeting with you and talking with you and networking with all the principals of the year across the country, doing the Proud Principals podcast and meeting with people there has just been refilling my bucket of trying to learn about other people and the things they're doing. And I am, like I said, I feel like I'm in imposter syndrome. At some point, somebody's going to say, "You're the state principal of the year in New Jersey. You're the finalist." But I'm realizing, talking to all these people, that no one has all the answers. No one's got it all to put together. Nobody. And that the more we can bring these people together, the better we're going to be. And that's one of the things I would like to do if, with the finalists, is just continue to network and bring people together. But that fills my bucket. That really fills my bucket.
Yeah, for sure. And certainly, now with with that Principal of the Year, with the Principal of the Year national finalist. Certainly a platform that gives you even more opportunities to bring those people together. People are going to want to get in touch with you, follow you, that type of thing. How do they find Tony Cattani? How do they find the Proud Principals podcast?
Yeah, so you can go to on X, you can go to at Cattani Tony, or you can go on Instagram, Proud Principals Podcast. I don't even have my own on. I started getting into Instagram, right? I know I need to get more into it, but I am my daughters are teaching me a lot of stuff. So those are the main two. But you can always contact me via email at Lenape Regional High School District at Lenape High School. You can easily find me. I'm the guy with the red jacket on, being proud of my kids and screaming Lenape pride everywhere we go, because we're proud of where we're from here in the Lenape Regional High School District at Lenape High School. So that's it. That's pretty simple.
Yeah, no, that's outstanding. And we'll put all that stuff down in the show notes so that people can make it real easy to find you. Again, Tony, congratulations on State Principal of the Year, national finalist, and wish you the best of luck. And thank you so much for joining me here on Leaning Into Leadership.
Darren, it was an absolute pleasure. I appreciate your time. Lenape pride.
All right, folks, excellent conversation there with Tony Cattani. Certainly appreciate him joining me here on the podcast. And again, to each of them, man, just a huge congratulations on the recognition for being national finalists for Principal of the Year. Episode 217 coming up on Sunday. Just to give you a little bit of a teaser there, we have Craig Randall, and we're going to be talking about trust-based observations. And then, folks, we'll be right back at it next Tuesday with our second of 3 middle school finalists, Sherry Bollert. Cannot wait to keep it rolling. So thank you so much for joining me here on episode 216 with Tony Cattani. Get out. Have a Road to Awesome week.